Hey folks, Ted from Immersion here, and let's dive back into some Icewind Dale content. This time we're going to be talking about the magic items contained in Icewind Dale. They vary from common, I think, all the way up to legendary. I've read through them cursorily, so just real quick, and I haven't dove back into really the intricacies of them. Some of them I did because I actually ended up using some in my homebrew campaign, and they're fun. But that being said, this is a warning to all of you that there will be spoilers in this video, as we're going to be looking at the magic items contained in the book. So if you're going to be playing through the game and you don't want to know what those new magic items are, don't watch this video. But if you're a DM or you're just planning on using the magic items in your game, this would be great for you. But before we jump into that, I just did want to take a quick minute to say, hey, thank you to everybody who's been subscribing to the channel lately. A lot of you seem to love how quick I stay on top of news coverage for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and other things. So I just wanted to take a moment to say, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so if you would like. We are under 300 subscribers away from 50,000 followers, and that'll trigger another giveaway on top of the soon to be released Icewind Dale giveaway. I'm just waiting to get a couple more things in so I can have them physically with me to be able to run that giveaway. Anyway, that's enough about the channel. Let's dive into the magic items. Some of them I may not be able to pronounce, or they're just kind of funky names. So here we go. I'm gonna move myself back over here to the corner since we're not doing comparison videos right now. So the first one up here is the Abracadabrus, right? I think that's how you pronounce that. Abracadabrus, I think. It's a wooden chest, right? There's a lot of food-based magic items in Icewind Dale, which is interesting to me. I guess it's because, like, if you're dealing with survival stuff and like being able to be starving, food is important. So basically, it's a chest, and it makes food. It's got charges, 20 charges. You can use an action when it's shut, and expend a charge, and then you name some stuff and it appears inside. It says including raw materials, foodstuffs, and liquid, worth a total of 1 GP or less. They appear in the chest, provided they can fit. And it says, for example, the plate can conjure a plate of strawberries, a bowl of hot soup, a flagon of water, stuffed animal, caltrops, whatever. Food and drink conjured by the chest are delicious. They spoil if not eaten in 24 hours. And any other precious metals and things disappear after a minute. It gets a D20 charges back daily at dawn. If you spend the last charge, roll D20. Typical thing. On a 1, it becomes a normal chest. I should say it was gem encrusted too. Cauldron of Plenty, this one I actually just added into my homebrew game last night, so I can actually just tell you what this is right off the bat. Oh, I should have said that the Abracadabrus is very rare. Cauldron of Plenty is rare, and it is a big-ass cauldron. We're talking, like, weighs 50 pounds, made out of solid copper. I think it's got a 3.5 diameter cauldron opening, and it can hold 30 gallons of liquid. And basically, if you pour water into this thing and stir it for a minute, it turns into a hot, hearty stew, and it can make up to 4 gallons, or sorry, 1 gallon of stew can feed 4 people. So if you're doing your math there, you can make 120 meals worth of stew by filling this thing up to the top with 30 gallons of liquid. As long as it stays in the cauldron, it remains hot. The outside of the cauldron stays cool to the touch, regardless of if there's hot stew on the inside. And then if you take it out and consume it and put it in a bowl or whatever, it just loses heat as it normally would in the real world. It can do 3 stew makings a day, until the next dawn, and it gets all of them back. So this item has a ton, like this could feed armies, right? Like you could do a ton with this. It also has like the cool flavor of nymphs and satyrs on the side in repose. Then there's the Hook of Fisher's Delight, which someone told me, and I'll ask you guys now, someone told me there was a fishing mini game contained in this book, and on my first read through, I did not see it. I saw several other kind of mini games, games within games that I will be doing a video on in the future. I did not see a fishing mini game, unless they meant this, which I wouldn't really consider this a mini game because it's a magic item. A rare, another attunement magic item, yet again, something that brings you food. Fishing is obviously also really important right in Icewind Dale. You've got Lachdinashir and, all the lacks that are there. Oh my god, I can't even remember the other ones. Lachdinashir is the only one that sticks in my brain. But anyway, where you catch your knucklehead trout. So it's a hook with a feather on it. It must be tied to the end of a fishing line and immersed into at least 10-foot cube of water. At the end of each uninterrupted hour of immersion, immersion, roll a d6. On a 6, it says a floppy 6-inch magical fish appears at the end of the hook. If you're considering that a mini game, then that is not a fun game. Wait an hour, roll a d6. If you roll a 6, then something happens. If not, then nothing does. And then there's actually a d20 roll because the fish has different properties. And once you use it, you can't use it again until the next dawn. So you can only catch a fish a day with this. So the green fish with copper bands is tasty and provides nourishment to one creature that eats it. It loses its property and rots away in 24 hours. Yellow with black stripes it's awful tasting and can be thrown about 120 feet, targeting a creature. They must make a DC 15 strength save or be knocked prone, and then the fish disappears. Blue with white stripes, with white bands. I should bands and stripes here. It squirms free, sprout wings, and follows you around and sings you a beautiful tune in the language Aquan. It disappears after 2d4 hours, or when it's dropped to 0 hit points. It uses the stats of a Quipper, which is basically a piranha, except it can breathe and it has a fly speed of 30 feet. And then a 19 to 20 is a golden fish with silver stripes. It is tasty. Whoever eats it gets nourishment for a day and 2d10 temporary hit points. Again, it rots away after 24 hours. I feel like there was a really good opportunity to do like a 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish here, especially if you're only doing 4 options. And like yellow with black stripes, like that reminds me, just in my head, I think of How to Train Your Dragon with the eel that like keeps the dragons away. So like you throw it, it knocks people down. I don't know. Maybe there's some like nuancy thing that I'm not getting as far as the references for these fish. But I would have, you summon 1 fish. It's a fish. 2 fish and a red fish and a blue fish. I think that would have been funny to me. The Lantern of Tracking, another common magic item. And this is really cool because it has a couple of purposes. First of all, it's a common magic item, which in theory means it can be purchased relatively cheaply most places in the world, or at least here in Icewind Dale. It is a functional bullseye lantern regardless of its magical properties, which, not for nothing, a bullseye lantern, pretty useful if you don't have dark vision, but this one does more than that. So I don't remember if bullseye lanterns can burn 6 hours on 1 pint of oil, but this one can. And it does its typical 30 feet of bright light, 30 feet of dim light. But the Lantern of Tracking is designed to track a creature. You can see there's a table here. The typical creatures you would imagine, right? Aberrations, dragons, and so on. And then once you choose what it is, or I don't know if it's determined when you buy it, if you roll, and then the first time you use it. But once its type is determined, it can never be changed. And while the lantern is lit within 300 feet of any type of that creature, its flames turn bright green. It's green flame. It doesn't point out their exact location. It just tells you that they're there. But still, a cool magic item. And again, like I said, it's not a bad idea. If you're going to be needing a lantern anyway, buy one of these because like its additional purpose of tracking a certain type of creature will only be a benefit. It will never be a detriment because it is still, again, just a lantern. I guess maybe if you're trying to be stealthy with your lantern lit. Yeah. So it has to be, because the flame turns green. So it's not like it just glows green. So it's not like it's going to be a surprise. When the fire's already lit, it turns green. So I like this. I also think this could be a great, not gonna call it a plot hook. Well, it could be, right? If someone has one of these and then all of a sudden it glows green and someone they're talking to happens to be, an undead and they don't realize it, or vampire or whatever. Or, this could be a quest that people go on because they're trying to eradicate something, track down someone. They go and they gotta find one of these lanterns. Again, it's common, so it shouldn't be too hard to get, but Anyway, also, so far, all of these items have been non-attunement, which is pretty cool because I enjoy that. You know, it means you can get more access to stuff. Next up, we have the Professor Orb, and I'm pretty sure this existed already in some other form. I could be wrong, but if I click the Professor Orb, does it show up from something? Yeah, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Yeah, okay, so I knew this was from somewhere else. So it's not really a new magic item, but we'll just read through it again. Rare, non-attunement. It is a smoky quartz orb, size of a grapefruit. Has 2 pinpricks. It's a sentient magic item with the personality of a scholar. You determine its ability scores, its mental scores, like you would with any sentient magic item. Usually the DM does that. Perhaps you, the player, get to do it, though. It speaks, reads, and understands 4 languages, and it can see and hear normally out to 60 feet. Unlike most other sentient items, it has no goals and can't initiate contact with the creature in possession of it. It has extensive knowledge of 4 narrow academic subjects. When making an intelligence check to recall from any of its areas of expertise, it has a +9 to the roll. So it's basically like a very limited Siri or Alexa, right? It only knows 4 topics, but you can ask it questions about it, and then it will answer them for you. In addition, it can cast a Mage Hand cantrip. It can use that to teleport, or to move itself. So, there you go. And then Professor Scant is the individual inside this orb. So the original orb, I guess I should say, was Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. This is a specific one. Professor Scant is inside it. It's owned by a Harple. You know, then there's some story stuff in here. It's got his specific stats. He speaks Common, Draconic, Elvish, and Loros, the dead language of Netheril. And his areas of expertise are history of Netheril, vampirism and the traits of vampires, rituals surrounding the making, bottling, and drinking of Elverquist, a rare ruby-colored elven liqueur distilled from sunshine and rare summer fruits. I want the lore on that. And then the Tarrasque. Very weird topics, Professor Scant. All right, that's that. Then we have the Psi Crystal. I also used this one in my game recently. So it's uncommon. First attunement item on our list here requires attunement by a creature with an intelligence of 3 or higher. And while you have it and are attuned to it, you have telepathy. And I like this because it says read the introduction section of the monster manual where they explain how telepathy works. I guess we could go to that ourselves and take a look. Here it says, to communicate mentally with another creature within range, contact with the creature doesn't need to share a language with the monster to communicate in this way, but it must be able to understand at least one language. A creature without telepathy can receive and respond to telepathic message, but can't initiate or terminate a telepathic conversation. And then basically the cool thing about this, and I actually like this concept, and it might be interesting to employ this concept on other magic items, is that the range, well, it also glows when you hold it, right? To us, it glows purple to the person attuned to it. But what's interesting is the higher your intelligence score, the longer the distance of telepathy is and the brighter it glows. So if you have like 3 to 7, it's a 15-foot telepathy and it glows with a dim light out to 5 feet. And if you have 16 plus, it's 120 feet of telepathy, bright light in a 15-foot radius, dim light in another 15 feet. And again, I super love the concept of this because this would be a really cool thing to incorporate into other items, right? Like imagine it's some sort of, I don't know, prayer beads is a bad example because they exist, but like some sort of divine item for a cleric, and based on your wisdom score, or it doesn't even necessarily be for a cleric, but it's a deity-based thing, and it's based on your wisdom, right? The higher the wisdom, the more stuff it does, or the further it works. I like that concept. Scroll of Tarrasque summoning, we kind of already saw this. Chris Perkins tweeted this a long time ago, pretty much right after it was announced, but use an action to read the scroll. It causes the Tarrasque to appear in an unoccupied space within 1 mile of you. It disappears when it drops to 0 hit points, and it is hostile towards all creatures other than itself. Also, in case anybody's curious and doesn't believe me that I'm saying the name right, let's go and check the D&D Beyond pronunciation guide. Because I've done a video on this in the past, but all older things, and they take time, they add this. If it has this little button here, it tells you how to pronounce it. I don't know if you could actually hear that. Let's try it again. Oh, nope. Matt Mercer's speaking only to me here. Well, that doesn't help you guys at all, does it? But he very clearly says Tarrasque in his deep sauna timbre there. I don't know why it's not. Let me see if I can change that real quick. Oh, I think if I do this, you should be able to hear it. Here we go. Ready?
Tarrasque.
There you go. So that's how you pronounce it. And then we have the Scroll of the Comet, which is almost like a meteor swarm comet, a legendary scroll for the Tarrasque summoning, legendary scroll for Comet. An action, you read the scroll, you cause a comet to fall from the sky up to a mile away from you. You must be outdoors when you use it, and it creates a 50-foot deep, 500-foot radius crater. Any creature in there must make a DC 20 Dex save or take 30 D10 force damage. All structures are destroyed, and non-magical objects that aren't being worn or held are also destroyed. The Thermal Cube, another really cool common magic item, is a 3-inch solid cube of brimstone, and it basically keeps an area within 15 feet of it comfortably at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those of you who use metric, 35 degrees Celsius, which means that it's going to keep you warm in an area somewhere like Icewind Dale, especially if the Rime of the Frostmaiden is happening. That's a super useful magic item. And then kind of last, one of the last couple, non-book, because they separated out the books, is the Ythryn Mythallar. I know that Mythallars are super important. They deal with like some ancient magic dealing with the weave. I know some of the lore folks out there have done videos on them. I believe Jordan with the silent PH in the middle. I think AJ Pickett as well has done Mythallar videos, but I'm not sure. You'll have to check their channels. Anyway, it's a crystal ball. It sheds bright light, 300-foot radius, and dim light for another 300 feet. It draws magic from the weave and can be harnessed to do a bunch of things. The bigger the Mythallar, the more magic you can hold. The largest Mythallars are about 150 feet in diameter. This one is about the size of a crystal ball. So, I'm sorry. It is 50 feet in diameter, this one. So my mistake. The largest is 150 feet. This one is only 50. To attune, you must finish a short rest within 30 feet of it, meditating on it. Up to 8 creatures can be attuned to it at once. If 9 creatures try, it doesn't work. All creatures attuned to it can sense when the device is being used. A creature attuned to the device can use any of its properties, but only if other creatures attuned to it agree to allow it. So if you have a whole bunch of people attuned to it, you can't just go rogue and do what you want. Everyone needs to agree. So while you're attuned and on the same plane of existence, you can use an action to cause it to fly in any direction with a speed of 30 feet. All matter within 500 feet of the device moves with it. It and all structures held aloft by it hover in place when not in motion. As an action, you can cause one magic item you're holding within 30 feet to immediately regain all of its expended charges. A magic item can't be recharged in this manner again until the item regains charges on its own. And then you can use it to cast Control Weather without any components and without needing to be outdoors. It has a 50-mile radius, and the duration of the casting, for the duration of the casting, you must be within 30 feet of the Mythallar, or it fails. Any creature that touches it must make a Constitution saving throw or take 180 radiant damage on a failed save or half on a success. Undead have disadvantage on this save. Any object that touches the globe other than an artifact or the Mythallar's cradle is disintegrated instantly. I mean, 180 points of damage, you're probably disintegrated too. And then here we have some nice art, some of the awesome art that I've been telling you about that's in this book. So good. And then there are 2 books in this section as well. Codicil of the Codicil of White, and the Incantations of Iriolarthas. Yeah. So anyway, Codicil of White is this cool book here. Again, look at the art on these. They look so good. Cold to the touch. 27 pages are made of vellum with silver gilt on the outside edges. I don't think we can see that in the image there. If you have this book, it does not say you need to attune to the book. I think you just have it. You get the stuff. Yeah. A creature with it in their possession has resistance to cold damage. The remaining pages, priestly rituals. Nestled among these descriptions is a spell that wizards can learn, Frost Fingers, which I covered in another video. A poem called Rime of the Frostmaiden, which exists in this book. And the poem is an incantation, the power of which can be used to split a glacier. The poem might have other capabilities at your discretion. So this one's cool because it's not attunement either. It's just a book that you can read to learn a spell and give you cold resistance. And then lastly, we have the Incantations of Iriolarthas, this big hefty spell book here with looks like a bunch of worms on the outside, I think. Yeah, there's a morbid display on the front cover, a stylized eye with pupil-shaped candle-like flame. The sigil of Iriolarthas, a Netherese Lich. All right, so then it's a spell book, and it has all of these spells in it. But the big thing is it has Create Magen, or Magen, however you pronounce it, and Blade of Disaster, the other two new spells that I did a separate video on. That is how you get them. So again, that's why I gave you kind of a warning of spoilers, because I believe both of those items are contained pretty much right at the end of the campaign. So it's not going to be something you're going to get early on, though I could be wrong. That was just my interpretation. So let me know what your thoughts are about the new magic items in Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. Like I said, interesting that a lot of these had to do with food. Again, it makes sense kind of in like an isolation, you know, are we going to survival-based kind of game? Food becomes an important thing. I like that we finally have like a good example of a professor orb, and we have like a whole concept behind them. I like the mechanics of the Psi Crystal, where the better your ability score is, in this instance intelligence, the better the item is, which also in that particular instance might make you want to focus on increasing your intelligence if that matters to you, the light and the range of the telepathy. Couple of interesting common magic items, which is always nice to see. 2 ridiculously powerful scrolls. I assume there's only one scroll of the Tarrasque in the world. It's like there's supposed to only be one Tarrasque, although obviously we know that that's not necessarily true. They come from another planet where their planet is nothing but Tarrasques. But I don't know. And then you have this Mythallar, which is interesting to see stats for, because I'm sure they existed in older editions. Just in like the lore of the worlds, they probably did exist, but to see one now in 5th edition is pretty cool. And then again, the concept of these books that are basically spell books, but some of them provide you benefits just for having them. And then an interesting way to introduce new spells. And I think that's kind of how they should go about that. I know they're obviously not going to do that with Tasha's because there's no way to do it. When they kind of put these out piecemeal, new spells, that it's good to introduce them like into someone's spell book. Interesting point of fact, do we think that the spells that were contained in this book, will they be reprinted in Tasha's so that you can have all of the new spells in one book? I don't know, but I am curious. Again, let me know your thoughts on these new magic items in the comments down below. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me and the channel. And I mentioned subscribing at the top of the video. I'll mention it again now. If you like what I do here, please consider subscribing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.